Hello everyone, my name is Xertz and today I will be discussing the basics of Python. To get started, we're going to go into the Python idle. If you don't already have the Python idle downloaded, then you should download it before this video starts so you can follow along if you want to. Now when we first enter the Python idle, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. This is where you can enter single line codes that will be ran here. However, this can only run single line code, so you can't write an entire program in here. For example, if I write print hello here and I press enter, it'll output hello. In order to write full programs, you have to open up a new file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File at the top of my screen, and I'm going to click New File. This will bring up a new file where you can write your program. So I can write print hello here. And I can also write my name is Xertz. And this time when I go up here and press run, it'll ask me to save, and then it'll run. And it'll say both. But if I try to do this here, I would have to write it separately. So I would start with hello, and then I'd have to type in my name is Xertz. I will discuss print statements later in the video so you can have an understanding of how to write them and what they do. There are multiple ways that you can write a print statement. So I already have a file for this video, so I'm just going to open that. To start, we're going to go over some Python data types. There are many data types in Python, but I'm just going to go over 4. Make sure that you know anything you need to know for a test in case these are not all of them that you have to know. The first one I am going to go over is an int. An int is a whole number that doesn't have any decimal points. So like 6 or 5 or 7, these are all ints. So to demonstrate, I'm going to create a variable and I'm going to set it equal to 7. Next, I'm going to print the type of variable. When I run this, it'll say class int. This shows that variable, which is equal to 7, is indeed an integer. The next data type we're going to talk about is a string. And a string is written like this. So a string is anything that is a text, so it would have to be in quotation marks. For example, if we go to variable 2, we could set that equal to hello. Now, if we print the type of variable 2, and we run the program, it'll say class string. This shows how this is a string. Strings also don't have to just be words. Let's say if we have variable 3 and set that equal to 7, just like variable 1. However, we're going to put this in quotation marks. This makes 7 a string in this case. So if I do print type variable 3, and I run this program, it'll also say that is a class string. Strings are very important in Python because that's what a user inputs, which we will discuss later on. Just get rid of these print statements for now. The next main data type I'm going to be discussing is a Boolean. So a Boolean is a true or false statement. Now the way you declare a Boolean is by writing true or false but with a capital letter. So let's say variable 4 is equal to true. This is how you would write it. Capital T but lowercase r, u, and e. Now if we write print type variable 4 and we press run, we'll see that it is a class bool. Writing a false statement is very similar. So let's say we have variable 5 equal to false. Capital F and the rest of the word is all lowercase. So now if we print type variable 5, we will get the same output as previously. We'll say class bool. Booleans are very important in things such as if or while statements. We will discuss that later on. The next data type we're going to go over is called a float. So a float is a real number with a decimal point. So let's say we have variable 6. We'll set that equal to 7.5. We'll print type variable 6. We'll run the program and we'll see that it is a class float. Floats are very useful since ints don't have decimal points. So whenever you need a number that has a decimal point, or you need to do some sort of mathematical operation, then you can just use a float instead of an integer. So that's all the data types I'm going to go over for today, but there are more, so make sure you know any data type you need to know if you're taking a class and you're trying to review for the class. If not, you can just follow along with these videos that I will be posting, and you can learn Python with me here. The next thing I'm going to go over are print statements. So we've already seen multiple print statements that I've already done to see the type. So, to write a print statement, in this version of Python, you have to use parentheses. In earlier versions of Python, there were different ways to write print statements. But this way of writing print statements also worked in those previous versions. So I would say your best bet is to always use this kind of print statement. Inside of these parentheses, you'll put quotation marks, and inside of these quotation marks, you'll write what you want to say. So if I run hello, like earlier, it'll print hello. Now let's say you want to print out a variable. So let's say we go back to variable 6 up here in the float section, and we do print variable 6. We run the module, and it will print 7.5. Now, although this doesn't have quotation marks, it works because it's the only thing being printed. However, let's say we want to include this variable with something else that is a string. So we're gonna write I am, then you do an addition sign to put this variable in between what you're about to say, years old. Now the reason I put these spaces here is because there's not going to be a space for this variable 6. This is ultimately going to end in an error anyway, though. So as we see, we have an error. This occurs because variable 6 is a float, and it cannot be concatenated with a string in print statements. To overcome this, we could write str and then place variable 6 in parentheses. This converts variable 6 from a float to a string. Now when we run the module, say I am 7.5 years old. These addition signs are what makes it possible to combine multiple strings in a print statement. We already discussed variables a little bit at the top, but we can go into that more in depth here. So a variable is some word that you want to set something to. It could really be anything. So I could write just a random string of letters, and then is equal to, I don't know, Python. Now this random mix of letters is equal to Python. So if we want to print this, it'll print Python. So that's basically what variables do. Now you can also have a number variable, which is important if you want to do math in your program. So number equals 7, other number equals 10. Now when we do this, we can perform operations. For example, we could do number plus other number. But if we want to do this, we need to make sure that it is set equal to another variable. So we're going to do total. So now total is equal to number plus other number. This is a new variable all in itself, even though it's the addition of two previously stated variables. Now let's say we print total, and we would expect to see 17. So here we have 17. Now we still have this print statement up here, which is why that other part was shown. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is commenting. Commenting basically allows you to write stuff in your file that won't be seen as the program is being ran. Now all of these statements at the top that are categorizing what I'm talking about are commented with this little hashtag. That means that the program is running and ignoring what is written after the hashtag. So, the program will run, it will see some Python data types, it'll completely ignore it and move on to this first statement that is not commented, which is variable equals 7. There are multiple ways to do comments. One way, which is meant for single line comments, is with a hashtag, as demonstrated above. So this would be a single line comment. Another way to write a comment is multi-line comments. You can do this by writing 3 apostrophes, write what you want to be commented, so multi-line comment, and then you will end it with 3 more apostrophes, as shown. So the Python program will completely ignore anything in here. Comments are important to keep track of your program, so if you come back the next day and you want to catch up on what you did last time and not forget anything, you could write a comment. You could also write to-do comments, which are very common. So you could write to-do add if statement. And that way you'll remember to add an if statement. The next thing we're going to go over are user inputs. User inputs are very important because it allows a user to interact with the program. So in order to do this, you're going to create your variable. I'm going to write input variable. Oh, by the way, when you're writing variables, you can't add spaces. If you really want something that resembles a space, you can add this. That way you can separate the words without adding a space. So I'm just going to do that here as an example. So, to write an input, you're going to literally just write input. So you're setting input variable equal to input. Then you're going to do parentheses. Now you're going to type what the user's going to see to prompt them to input something. So I'm going to write, how old are you? When I run this module, it's going to ask, how old are you? And I'm going to type 25. Now, input variable is set equal to 25. Now let's show this as a print statement. You are, and I'm going to plus. Now I'm going to write, you don't have to write string, because what you are inputting is automatically a string. So I'm going to do input variable plus years old. I'm going to do run. And now when I enter 25, it's going to print you are 25 years old. Now let's say you have a user input that's going to be a number and you want to add it to another number. So let's say we have our friend other number up here, which is equal to 10. So let's say you want to do other number plus input variable. And we're going to set this equal to age with 10. Now when I run this, I'm going to get an error. This occurs because input variable is a string, and you can't add a string to an integer, because the program can't tell if the string is actually a number or if it's words, and you can't add words to a number, obviously. So to fix this, you're going to write int, and you're going to put input variable in parentheses. Now I can print you will be plus the string of age with 10, because now age with 10 is going to be an integer, plus in 10 years. I'm going to add a space here so that it's not bunched together with the age. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to say I'm 25. You are 25 years old. So this print statement is working over here. You will be 35 in 10 years. That's true. Okay, the next thing we're going to go over are if statements. Booleans are really important to use with if statements, but you can also use integers or strings for this. But the basic idea is if something is true, this will happen, and if something is false, this will not happen. Let's say, for example, if variable 4, then we can do print yes. I'm going to run the module. We have this from earlier, and it'll print yes. So I'm just going to comment out user input so this doesn't continue to print while we discuss if statements. Same with variables. And print statement section up here. Okay. So now let's run this again. And we'll see that this is clearly yes, because variable 4 is true, and this is basically saying if this is true, then print this, which is exactly what happened. Something you cannot do is not add this indent here. Indentation is extremely important in Python, and without it, the program won't know what's supposed to be nested or not. So you have to show that this print statement is nested within the if statement. now let's say if variable 5, we're going to print yes again. Okay. And we will comment this so we know that we're not getting yes printed from here. Run the module. We're going to see that nothing is printed at all. This is because variable 5 is false. However, if we add not in front, and we run it, it will print, because it's basically saying if variable 5 is not true. And since variable 5 is false, it'll be printed. Okay. There are other ways to do if statements, such as we could say if something is equal to something else. So let's say if variable 6 is equal to 7.5. When you do this, you have to put two equal signs, because variable 6 isn't exactly the same as 7.5, but its value is equal to 7.5. So we're going to write print yes. Let's see what happens. Unexpected indent. Okay. That was because of a commenting issue over here. Okay, so we see that it prints yes because variable 6 has the same value as 7.5. We can also say if variable 6 is greater than 2. We're going to print yes. We're going to comment out this if section over here. And we'll see that yes is printed because 7.5 is greater than 2. Now let's say we want to say if variable 6 is not equal to 8. This is stated a bit differently than what is previously up here with if not variable 5. That's because variable 5 is a boolean and not a number. So we would do, when it is a number, we would do does not equal 8, like that. And since that is true, it'll print yes. Now let's say we want to do if variable 6 does not equal 7.5. Print yes. Okay. And we're going to comment out this section here so that we only get the yes from not equals 7.5. However, nothing's going to print here because variable 6 is equal to 7.5, making this statement false. We could also do if statements with strings. Let's say if variable 2 is equal has the same value as hello. Print yes. So run the module. We'll see that yes is printed. However, let's change this to say hello without the exclamation mark. Yes will not be printed in this instance because variable 2 has the value of hello with an exclamation mark, making this untrue. So that is all for this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any requests or recommendations for future videos. I will be posting more in the future.